What is up, football fans? Welcome into another edition of XFL Chalk Talk, presented by Top Dog Marketing. This is the show where we go beyond the box score, breaking down the latest news in and around the XFL. We have a jam-packed show today, guys. Oh my God, the news is coming in hot. And buckle up, XFL fans. I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon from here till February. We're going to talk about quarterback assignments, new quarterback assignments. We're going to cover the supplemental draft, the Football Advisory Network, and a big announcement. Training camp's going to Houston. It's an exciting time to be following, to be covering the XFL. And us at XFL Chalk Talk, we are so excited. I mean, we're one of the newer shows out there. We really came up with this idea that we wanted to do this back in June, guys. So, from there, we kind of, spent a couple of months really planning this out because we want to put together a good show, good quality production. So we made sure we had our ducks in a line. We launched in, I think, September. So I can't believe how fast we're growing and how much fun it's been to interact with the XFL community. And it doesn't get any better than interacting with the XFL Commissioner himself, Oliver Luck, who was kind enough to give XFL Chalk Talk a shout out recently when they were at their meeting up in Stamford, Connecticut.
Hey Oliver, there's a new media outlet called XFL Chalk Talk. What do you think?
I think XFL Chalk Talk is awesome, particularly if it's based in the beautiful town of Blacksburg, Virginia.
Ooh, good one. Thanks, guys.
How cool is that? I mean, we're a new
So
show.
cool.
He didn't have to do that.
So cool.
We're so excited because we're growing. We're getting more involved in the XFL community, and it's only going to continue to grow from here. But the fact that Commissioner Luck and everyone at the XFL headquarters took the time to, give us that shout out. It just really shows you that the league they're serious about the fans above all phrase that they use so much. I mean, we're not technically, we are fans of the league, obviously, but we're a media outlet. But the fact that they're giving us that kind of shout out, it's pretty damn cool.
It was awesome, man. I was literally sitting in a meeting, and then the email come across from the XFL communications director, and she was like, "Hey, here's a little bit of a surprise for you guys." And I opened it in a meeting on my phone and jumped up and started fist pumping. Everybody just was thinking I was having a seizure. I don't know what they were thinking, but I didn't really care because I was so excited, and I thought it was such a cool touch on developing a relationship with us, but ultimately it shows how, Riley, to your point, how serious they are with developing a relationship with fans, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. And that's what anybody who listens to the show is it's about developing that fragile relationship and building it from the ground up. And they're doing a great job of it.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's awesome. I mean, we've been doing this for less than 8 weeks now, and we're already getting shout outs from the commissioner of the XFL. We're getting a lot of player followings on all our social media.
Pat yourself on the back,
Pastel.
Just
great. Yeah, I know, right?
That
was
Instagram
all me, by the way.
Pastel over there. Insta-P.
It's so exciting, though. It's like this league is growing into its first year. The show is growing. The fan base is growing. Yeah. Things are just, they're getting more and more exciting, and the dominoes are falling into place. We have so much news to get to, but I thought it's just cool to start out with that, and just kind of say thank you to everybody that's been following along. We're going to be incorporating, moving forward, a lot of fan engagement type of segments and things that you can interact with on our social media accounts. So check us out at xflchalktalk.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at XFL Chalk Talk. So again, thank you everybody for the support. We're only going to grow from here. So let's move forward and get into today's opening drive. Let the quarterback competition begin, boys. Wow, the XFL dropped somewhat of a surprise yesterday. Not so in the fact that they've signed new quarterbacks, because Oliver Luck said after the first group of allocated quarterbacks came out that this was not the final list, that more quarterbacks were going to be scouted, recruited, and brought in. But I don't think anybody was expecting them to announce it right before the supplemental draft. They bring in Josh Johnson to the LA Wildcats, Taylor Heineke to the St. Louis Battlehawks, and Chase Linton is assigned to the Seattle Dragons. So I kind of want to go one by one. I want to start with Josh Johnson in the quarterback competition there, because to me, it's like black and white. It's like you have a quarterback with very little experience, and then you have this other quarterback with tons of experience. He's been around forever. So, Kenny, why don't you start us off? What do you think of the LA Wildcats getting assigned Josh Johnson?
Yeah, you're definitely right. It's a total 180 in terms of their resumes. Josh Johnson's been, he's been in the league. He's been in 15 different professional organizations in his 12 years, and that's including the NFL, UFL, XFL now. He's got a ton of experience just with these teams, learning new playbooks on the fly, adjusting to new landscapes. So for him to come in and learn the playbook isn't going to be that difficult, I don't think, for him. He's been there, done that. And then you have Luis Perez, who's, green. He's wet behind the ears. He didn't really play. He didn't really play football until he got to college, at least quarterback. He's played for one professional organization in the AAF, which was limited. And now he's at the XFL. So it might be a situation. It could be a long-term thing. They know Luis Perez is young. They might want him to sit and learn behind Josh Johnson and learn how to become a professional quarterback. And they're viewing this as a long-term solution, almost like keeping a rookie behind a veteran for a season to learn. So it could be that, or who knows? Maybe Luis Perez elevates his game and beats out Josh Johnson.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the performance in training camp and minicamp from Josh Johnson and to see exactly where he's at physically and what he can do, with his arms and even a little bit with his legs. I watched him play. He started 4 games for the Redskins last year. I watched all 4 of those games, and he certainly has a lot of experience when it comes to understanding playbooks, understanding schemes. He's pretty much seen it all, as Kenny said earlier. But I'm going to be interested to see where he is from a talent perspective. Can he still wing the ball? What I saw in DC last year looked like a guy at the tail end of his career. So to Kenny's point, is he just going to kind of be a good backup and they let Luis Perez kind of with the reins and then go from there? Or are they going to go forward and let him go and Perez learn behind him?
I want to play this clip from Winston Moss. He went to Twitter yesterday to welcome Josh Johnson to the Wildcats, and he mentioned the word competition, which is very interesting.
We're definitely excited to welcome Josh Johnson to the XFL family as well as the Wildcats. He's proven that he is a quarterback with experience, smarts, and ability. So we look forward to welcoming him into the fold. And it'll be a great competition at quarterback. And we're looking forward to Josh not only being an asset for the Wildcats, but for the XFL.
All right. So there you have it. It's a competition. I mean, I don't think that really surprises us too much, but Winston Moss has already came out and said it's a competition. And I said at the beginning, it's, the difference in experience at a professional level is, obviously very different. But even their style of play, like Luis Perez, he's a more of your traditional pocket passer. He has a big arm, but he's not very mobile, which we've talked about extensively because of Pastel on the show.
Nice.
Josh Johnson is the complete opposite. I mean, the guy ran like a 4.4 coming out of San Diego. So whichever direction they choose, it's kind of like I get the whole learning behind for experience, but in terms of styles of play, they couldn't really be more different, could they?
No, they couldn't. But honestly, I'm curious to see how the rule book kind of shapes offenses for like the offensive line play. So if that offensive line play isn't very good, maybe you need a quarterback like Josh Johnson that can create a little bit more time for himself for these passes to develop downfield. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Luis Perez. I think the guy's got great arm talent. I think he could do well in this league. He just has to, I guess, have better pocket presence. And negotiate.
He needs more reps, He needs more reps.
Does. Yeah. But how long are you going to wait for him to get those reps? I mean, are you going to sacrifice half the season to allow him to get those reps?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm with you. When I said he's going to, Luis might sit behind and learn from Josh, it wasn't necessarily from a style of play perspective. It's just learning how to be a professional quarterback. Like, I think this makes Luis Perez better, even if he doesn't start, because he gets to learn from a consummate professional. You don't play for 15 organizations if you're not a professional like quarterback, like if they don't think you can handle your day-to-day business as a professional quarterback. So he clearly has the study habits. He clearly has the work ethic. He's got the talent, obviously. So I think this helps Luis Perez, whether he beats him out because it elevates his game that way, or how to learn how to play quarterback at a professional level.
I'm going to love to see the competition in training camp, right? And just the difference in talent. And what is the difference in talent, right? Like Josh Johnson's played for, 15 teams in the NFL, right? He's kind of the guy that gets signed quickly and released quickly because he can learn a playbook rather fast. But how does he compare talent-wise? I don't know, because one played in the AAF, the other one has played in the NFL. And the NFL, at least the last four games he started for the Redskins was less than impressive. I think the last game he threw for 92 yards. So I don't know. I'm gonna love to watch the competition and just see the difference in talent. And is there a difference in talent? And if there's not a difference in talent, then who do you start?
Yeah, and honestly, another big takeaway from all of this, and I think is a win for the league, is that there's going to be competition. We had we thought that there was going to be tier 1 quarterbacks, or there's going to be 8 quarterbacks. We thought that was going to be it, set in stone. Those are going to be the starters week 1. That's not what the XFL is saying at this point. They're saying, hey, we're going to bring in multiple guys that are tier 1 caliber quarterbacks. And the best guy's going to win. Yeah, which is only good for the league.
This is the most intriguing because of the different styles of play. I mean, Josh Johnson's been around the NFL forever. It seems he's played for 4 or 5 different teams. He's been very inconsistent in the NFL. His career completion percentage is right around 55%, which isn't terrible, but it's not anything that is going to jump off the page at you as very impressive.
What's the official number? Is it 15 teams? It's 13.
So you mean like throughout his whole career?
Yeah, throughout his whole career. Yeah.
So I had 13 NFL teams, and then 2 other professional organizational teams. If you count the fleet, I don't think he didn't really play for the fleet, but. But he's been a part of or drafted or picked up by 15 different professional organizations.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win for the XFL and the Wildcats. Their quarterback room was pretty limited after you got through Luis Perez. So, like you said, Kenny, I don't think this is a bad thing for Luis Perez either. Even if he does lose the starting job, he lost his starting job with Birmingham, but they went to Keith Price, who's not the caliber of quarterback of a Josh Johnson. Sorry, Glessner. He's just not.
I know.
So it's just a much better position for the team to be in, but also for Luis Perez to be able to, just have that support in the quarterback room. So I think it's a great move for the XFL and the Wildcats. But I think we're all in agreement. This isn't the most compelling or intriguing quarterback competition to us. I think that award goes to St. Louis. They have Jordan Teamu on the roster, but they bring in Taylor Heineke to compete with him. I think this is going to be a very interesting quarterback competition to watch when we get to training camp.
And it's 3 deep. It's 3 deep because you got Brogan Roback as well. They drafted him early in the phase 1 draft. So if you're an XFL Battlehawks fan, I think you've got to be super pumped because you have 2 allocated quarterbacks now and a quarterback you drafted early in phase 1. So I think whoever wins that job is going to be highly regarded and is going to have an elite level of play for XFL standards. So as a Battlehawks fan, I'm over the moon that we've got 3 potential starting quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah, I'm a huge Taylor Heineke fan. He was a big-time stud at ODU. He started 6 games for the Panthers last year as Cam Newton's backup. 2012, he was the Walter Payton Award winner at ODU, and he's a big-time gunslinger. So if you mix a big-time gunslinger with the air raid offense that they're going to run in St. Louis, I think he's got a legit shot to play. And he may play early if Teamu struggles, or he may win the job outright. I don't know. And, it'll be awesome to watch in training camp. I think this is one of the bigger storylines that we'll see when January comes around down in Texas.
Well, this might be the one case where experience does win out, because we've said it in previous podcasts that Teamu is the only quarterback that was allocated that doesn't have professional experience yet. Yeah. Where you got a guy like Taylor who has plenty of experience at the NFL level. So this might be one of those battles that, Teamu has all the talent in the world. But
you see from these highlights here, Pastel and Glessner, to your point, with running that air raid with Doug Meacham. I can see them running a lot of RPOs. And we talked about that when we were breaking down diversity in offenses with Te'amu. I can see that with Heineke as well. You saw in those last two highlights.
Yeah.
He's a gunslinger, but he's also pretty mobile as well. So while you look at LA and you have completely different styles in terms of the quarterbacks, here I think they kind of mesh very well together within the same system.
Yeah, and if you compare, I'm not saying all college resumes are equal or created equal or the same, but if you compare their college resumes, Te'amu and Heineke wins out. I mean, he's one of 18 Division I quarterbacks to throw for 10,000 yards and rush for 1,000 for a career. Like Gillespie.
Yeah, different competition though.
Well, I mean, yeah, but still, that's all of Division I. That's 18 D1, Division I AA, FCS, all that stuff. I mean, it's not, and not only that, he didn't miss a beat when their programs notoriously struggle when they go from FCS to the FBS level. They went from the FCS to the FBS level, and granted, it wasn't a full transition because they still played a lot of Division I or FCS teams, but he still played a Conference USA schedule and did well. Like, he didn't miss a beat. Like, he was still very dynamic. So I think the natural throwing ability is there. The ability to step up in competitions there because he went from the FCS to the FBS to the NFL. So he knows how to negotiate that talent level jump.
Yeah, and to Kenny's point, he's kind of always stepped up with the competition, and that's why he's kind of stuck around the NFL as long as he did. I mean, he was on the Vikings roster for 2-3 years, and then he went to Carolina. He was kind of on and off with IR, and I think he had a shoulder issue. But last year he proved that he could play. I was actually stunned he didn't get a backup job in the NFL. Just because of his experience that he had last year.
Well, Gless, you said pre-show that you think the Battlehawks have the best quarterback situation in the entire league. So you are very high on both of these guys.
I am, yeah. Both big-time gunslingers. They can run. They can, we mentioned earlier, they can run as well. I mean, Te'amu led the SEC in passing yards last year, like at Ole Miss. Yeah. Like, when has that ever happened? So I think that's what that shows you. And they're both young guys. I think Heineke is 24, 25, somewhere around that range. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that competition. I was a little stunned that they put him on the Battlehawks because Te'amu is kind of the one young guy that they allocated, just kind of the keys to the franchise. But it's going to be a great competition in January for sure.
You can see with all of these assignments that they did before the supplemental draft, they all went to teams with quarterbacks with the least amount of professional football experience. So, I mean, there's obviously strategy involved there. If you guys had to choose right now before we get to training camp, obviously it needs to play out on the field. Who are you going with? Are you going with Te'amu or are you going with Heineke? I mean, to me, it's a very tough decision. It's a good problem to have if you're the Battlehawks because, like Gless mentioned, they're both pretty young. I mean, Te'amu is fresh out of college. So these are guys, I mean, everyone's ultimate goal, I think, in this league is to try to get back to the XFL or the NFL for the most part. But these guys are so young that you could hold on to them for a few years and build your team around them potentially. So if you guys were choosing today, right now, who would you go with?
The Monarch. Heineke.
You going with Heineke?
Yeah.
I'm going with Te'amu.
Is that because of the NFL experience, Pastel?
So I think it's the NFL experience. Also, we got to think Te'amu, he played at Ole Miss, but he only played, 2 years at Ole Miss?
About a year and a half,
He transferred from a military institute before that. So, not only is he young, he doesn't even have the experience to back up his age. But that being said, I'm a huge fan of him. I do think he is going to be a great quarterback. I just think based off the experience and the way that they can run that offense in St. Louis, Heineke.
And he has, but Heineke has 4 years of experience. He was a 4-year starter at ODU, wasn't he?
I believe so. 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, he was a 4-year starter at ODU. So while the competition may have been a little bit less than what you see, obviously, in the SEC, he does have those reps at the college level. So I think it's a great point, Pastel.
It's tough because I think Te'amu is – I think he's more athletic. I think he's from a raw ability, he's probably a better overall player athlete.
Oh, much higher ceiling.
than Heineke. But you can't. I don't think you can replicate the experience Heineke has. And not only that, we keep harping on the SEC versus FCS and lower level. Look, any quarterback that breaks Steve McNair's passing record is. I don't care what level they're playing at. Is a big win for me. And I mean, if you look at being a Walter Payton Award winner, if you look at just some of the past guys, Jimmy Garoppolo, Armani Edwards, Tony Romo, Brian Westbrook, Cooper Kupp, like guys who win those awards go on to play in the NFL and have extended careers in the NFL.
For sure.
I'm just saying you can't compare stats with an SEC quarterback compared to an FCS quarterback.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely.
Look, they're both young. They're both extremely talented. Te'amu has the higher ceiling just because he is so raw. He's probably the better athlete. I'm going to go with Te'amu to start, but I think Heineke's going to give him – I think he's going to give him a run for his money, though, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a ton of playing time throughout the year.
Who do you got, Kenny?
Heineke.
What about you, Riley?
I'd probably go Te'amu at this point.
50-50.
It's really tough, though. I mean, this is a close competition. Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting to see play out. And honestly, I'm not sure you can go wrong with either. Like I said, I think the Battlehawks fans should be super pumped going into the season, knowing you have two pretty legit options. And especially since Te'amu has such a lack of experience, bringing in a guy that has NFL experience but is also still really young, it's a huge win for that franchise and that fan base. So let's move on to the last quarterback that was allocated, Chase Linton out of Marshall. He spent some time with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was with your Jacksonville Jaguars earlier this year, Kenny, before he was let go off the practice squad. He's heading up to Seattle. I think out of all three of these guys, if I was Brandon Silvers, I'd be the most comfortable still, at least in terms of security of my – there's nothing against Chase Linton, but – I just think Brandon Silvers has the best situation in terms of still keeping his starting job heading into training camp.
Yeah, Chase Linton's, kind of that classic example of the quarterback who keeps getting opportunities, and not the talent level is there, but he's 6'6", 235 pounds. Like, those guys are always going to get opportunities to play at the professional level if they show some sort of upside, because you can't teach that kind of size and the natural arm strength that comes with them. But he was pretty dynamic at Marshall. He's top 5 passing all time at Marshall. I think he was 5th. Guys like Michael Payton, Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich. So there's a pedigree of quarterbacks that he's part of at Marshall. So that's impressive in its own right. But we'll see if he can put it together. He's never really had an opportunity. He left early, didn't get drafted, sat on the Chiefs practice squad for a bit, sat with the Jags practice squad for a bit, and now he's here. So we haven't really seen what he's able to do at the professional level. But I think Brandon Silvers has a little bit better of a resume at a college as well from Troy.
Yeah, and it also helps that they drafted his receiver from Marshall in the first round of the supplementary draft as well with Tyree Brady.
Good point, Pascal. Yeah.
I love how you
like my
say
tweet,
it, though, man. What do you mean? What your tweet?
See what you're doing there?
My tweet, yeah. I said, we see what you're doing there, Seattle.
I did. I actually like that. Yeah,
I enjoy it.
I love how you're saying he should be the most comfortable quarterback.
I mean, am I wrong, though?
No, you're not. You're completely right, in my opinion.
No, but like I said, Chase didn't, like I said, he's top 5 prolific passer at Marshall. That's nothing to sneeze at. The amount of talent that's gone through Marshall at quarterback has been, very, very impressive. And that's recent talent. That's not like, 30, 40 years ago talent. So, Rakeem Cato was another guy. He replaced Rakeem Cato, who was the number 1 passer all time at Marshall, and he kept that torch going. So let's not call it an open and shut case. I mean, Chase Linton clearly has the physical skills. It's can he put it all together? Because that's something he's never really been super consistent. And that's the biggest thing. But if he figures it out, he very well could unseat Brandon Silvers.
Yeah, see what Jim Zorn can do. Hey, so I think I guess the players that weren't allocated and were already on a team, I think the other biggest competition that we might have, in my opinion, is probably down there in Houston with Phillip Walker and Connor Cook. Now, I'm a big Phillip Walker fan. I think he's going to thrive in that type of offense, but we'd be dumb to think that Connor Cook's not going to compete for that spot. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the XFL in general has done a great job of bringing in competition into these teams that have quarterbacks that they've allocated but have little experience outside of the college ranks, and that's exactly what you see with Phillip Walker. I mean, he spent some time with the Colts, but when you compare him to Cardell Jones, obviously a Landry Jones, he just doesn't have the experience in the NFL. So I think, it's obviously a strategy thing, and I think it's only beneficial for the league. Connor Cook, was very prolific in his time at Michigan State. So that's going to be another interesting competition to watch. So that's 4 out of 8 teams heading into the opening season. That's going to be some awesome quarterback battles going on.
High tides raise all ships, man. Competition's great. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll see how these quarterback competitions play out. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're at XFL Chalk Talk, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube page and check us out on xflchalktalk.com. Subscribe to our email list so you can get updates on content that's posted based on your favorite XFL team. So XFL teams continue to fill out their rosters, guys, with the supplemental draft that just took place. Let's go over some players that stood out to us. Glessner, why don't you kick us off? I think you're going to focus on somebody from the St. Louis Battlehawks with tons of NFL experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I saw his name come across Twitter yesterday, my eyes lit up because I was surprised that he was even still available. Thought that he was waiting for an NFL opportunity, but that would be Terrence Williams. I think everybody who has watched the NFL the last 5 years remembers Terrence Williams. Extremely durable guy, played for the Dallas Cowboys. Played in looks like for all 5 years he was in the NFL. Started 16 games. So played in all of those, has 23 career touchdowns and close to 3,500 career reception yards. So certainly a big-time player, and I think can, again, only add to the St. Louis Battlehawks offense, as we talked about in another segment with Jordan Ta'amu and possibly Tanner Heineke. But I think he's going to be a dynamic weapon for him. And I guess that the reason he hadn't been picked up yet, I think that he has had some suspension issues in the NFL. Looks like he was suspended for substance abuse once, 3 games. So I think he's run into some hard times lately. So I'd like to see him kind of get back on his feet in the XFL and really kind of haul in a bunch of touchdowns for the Battlehawks.
Yeah, he was kind of the Robin to Des Bryant's Batman in Dallas. Like he was kind of
that's a good way to put it, Kenny. Yeah.
He was kind of the revolving door, like him, Miles Austin, Cole Beasley. Like those guys were very good compliments to Des and Jason Witten when they were there. So
he was an extremely productive player, right? He wasn't like earth-shattering, like as far as making Pro Bowls and stuff like that, but he was extremely productive. He did what they wanted to do on offense in Dallas, and he was a really good complement piece. So like to see what he can do, certainly for the Battlehawks.
He automatically becomes one of the bigger name wide receivers in the league, doesn't he? I mean, I had him in the mock draft going really early that we did, so I'm just glad he's in the league.
Maybe I think he was probably holding out for another NFL opportunity, and then probably through his agent. I don't think teams – I don't know why. I mean, again, the only thing that I can see is that he was suspended for substance abuse once in 2018. So I don't know if teams are pretty shy and they don't want to even take the chance on that. But I was surprised he didn't have another NFL opportunity.
One thing I do know is that the Battlehawks picked up a hell of a receiver. I mean, it's hard in this league to find a player that has the kind of experience and success that Williams has had in the NFL, so it's a huge pickup for them. Pastel, you also wanted to focus on somebody from the Battlehawks.
Yeah, well, Kenny, if they drafted Robin, they also got the Joker, and that's
look at that! Look at that, Pastel.
Nice zing.
So clever.
Zing.
Somebody's personality is bigger than his leg. Honestly, that guy. Every time you see him on the NFL field, he's doing something. He's dancing. He's picking up flags after he gets hit from a late hit when he was punting for the Raiders. So I mean, this guy's big character, big leg. He is actually a good punter. I think he's signed 2 extensions at this point in the NFL for pretty big contracts. So I'm excited to see what he does in the XFL. I do think the Battlehawks did get a good kicker. I feel like we're Battlehawk fans at this point. We always talk about the Battlehawks, talk about how great the quarterbacks are, receivers, punters. At this point, they have a good roster. But yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to see Marquette King in the league.
Excellent. Yeah, I like if you're a punter, you got to have a big personality to stand out, because most punters, or special teams guys, kickers, punters, most of those guys don't have a personality. You don't hear a lot about their personality. So it's kind of cool to see someone in the league who, has fun on the field, is outspoken in social media, and just is going to have a presence and kind of be a mouthpiece for players in the league.
Guys, think about this. When we talk about outspoken punters, you're going to have Pat McAfee and Marquette King all talking and hanging out together. That might be must-watch TV. I mean,
good point, Gless. Great point.
What a duo that would be.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the interviews on that game. But yeah, I mean, if anything, it's going to be a great story. And Kenny, you want to talk about something that's a really cool story.
Yes. Yeah, probably, maybe the biggest storyline in the XFL now, like in terms of outside looking in, is Damon Sheehy Giuseppe. If that name doesn't ring a bell, I get it. He only played junior college football, but he was the guy who had a punt return for a touchdown in the preseason for the Cleveland Browns in the entire 90-man roster on the sideline. They all ran off the sideline into the end zone, and they mobbed him in the end zone to celebrate with him. And the reason for that is his story is incredible. I mean, they're going to make a movie about this one day. He was homeless. Let's start off he was a 2016 junior college All-American, and then didn't play football after that. He was jobless and homeless, living in Miami as early as this year, 2019, spring of 2019. Lied about knowing director of player personnel Alonzo Highsmith at a Cleveland Browns spring practice to get like a workout. If you've ever seen the movie Major League, he's like the modern day Willie Mays Hayes. Lies to get into the facility, has a great workout. They keep him on as a special teams guy to compete as a punt returner and kick returner, and then scores the touchdown in the preseason. It's just an incredible story. Unfortunately, he didn't make the full roster, but now he's on the XFL, and it's just another positive storyline for the XFL to have, and it's awesome to showcase these great stories and these guys who are literally coming from being homeless to being a professional football player. It's fantastic. I really hope he succeeds. I love it.
I got a feeling this is not going to be a feel-good story. It's going to just be a good player in the XFL. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about how the rule book, and once they release the rule book, hopefully we get better clarification, but how it's going to highlight the kick return and punt return element of the football game. And a guy like that, and to utilize his talents on special teams, he's going to be a player in this league, man.
Yeah.
Another guy that stood out to me, Kenny, from the Guardians, is linebacker Antonio Morrison. This guy has quite the baggage, quite the story. He was in the league for a while. He actually led the Colts in tackles in 2017 with 109. So wow. He has some legit playing experience in the league. He's had a couple of legal issues at Florida, where he went to college. He was a first-team All-SEC. He was planning to leave after his junior year, but he blew out his ACL, I believe, in the bowl game that he was playing. And so he was forced to come back in his senior year, and he totaled 315 freaking total tackles in his fourth season. So the dude was a monster, machine, man. Yeah, but the injuries kind of derailed him a little bit from his initial plans. I think the Colts traded up to get him actually in the fourth round. Like I said, he led them in tackles. So I think it's a big get for a team to bring in, kind of like what we talked about with Terrence Williams, to bring in a guy that has that type of NFL, not just NFL experience, but actual game experience, to bring him in your linebacking core is huge. So that was a big get for the Guardians. I want to focus on the DC Defenders. After the initial draft, I think we all agreed that they had a really good draft, really solid draft. And they had a clear strategy when it came to their wide receivers. They went for not like what you saw in New York. They weren't like 6 feet and over, guys that can really jump up and get it. They were smaller, quicker, faster guys that can really take the top off the defense. And in this supplemental draft, they really added to the experience, because that was the one thing that I was a little concerned about. Was they brought in a lot of speedsters, but not a lot of guys with experience at the professional level. So bringing in an Eli Rogers into your wide receiving core, I think is huge. I think it's probably one of the bigger gets in this supplemental draft. I mean, he was another guy that produced at the NFL level with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the one thing that we all know with the Pittsburgh Steelers is, if anything, they know how to draft and develop wide receivers. And he was able to get on the field at points. I mean, he was, we talked about this with Sammy Coates as well. It's just a crowded wide receiver room. He was dealing with Sammy Coates, Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown. I mean, big-time wide receivers. And he was able to, accrue some playing time. So the fact that they can get him in a league like the XFL and bring him onto a roster that is very talented but lacks some professional football experience, I think is huge for the Defenders. And then another guy that they brought in at wide receiver, Malachi Dupree, who doesn't have the NFL experience, but the pedigree that he came out into LSU was Kenny. I believe he was a 5-star recruit, wasn't he?
He was huge. I mean, he was a massive recruit. He was the next guy in line, if you will. LSU's always had a tradition of having stud receivers. From Michael Clayton to Dwayne Bowe to Jarvis Landry to Odell Beckham. Like, he was the next guy in line. He was supposed to be that guy. He was a 5-star recruit, one of the number 1 recruits of their class, and unfortunately just never really paid out. And to be fair to his defense, he was on those teams, those LSU teams, where the offenses were just
dreadful,
horrific,
just atrocious. Yeah. What did we talk about? Was it Brandon Harris was throwing him the ball?
Yeah,
like
Danny
my
Etling, Danny Etling ended up getting converted, I think, to wide receiver or running back in the NFL. And he was a quarterback in college. So who knows? I mean, this could be a guy who just hasn't had an opportunity to showcase his talent yet consistently with a good quarterback. So if he finds his niche with DC, man, that could be a potentially steal of the draft.
It's hard to completely whiff on a 5-star recruit, isn't it? There's obviously talent there. Right. It has to be there. It's just putting it all together. And at LSU, he was just dealt a bad hand with quarterback play. Couldn't overcome it. I mean, you need someone to throw you the damn ball. So he just, he couldn't get the numbers that he needed to get legit NFL looks. So he gets the opportunity here with the Defenders. So them bringing in Dupree and Eli Rogers, I think, is huge. One thing before we jump off, it's just, to me, when I look at the supplemental draft, obviously it's to fill out your roster. And I wonder how it works in terms of some of these teams, like the Defenders brought in 13 new guys, where the Tampa Bay Vipers and the Seattle Dragons,
4?
It was 4 or 5.
3 or 4, yeah.
So you draft to what your needs are, but whether it's, behind the scenes stuff in terms of players not committing to the league because of pay, or guys, I know the Defenders and the Battlehawks have had, I guess it's problems. I mean, it kind of shows you how good of a draft that they had, losing guys to NFL practice squads. Isn't it advantage or disadvantage going into training camp? So these guys that are on practice squads are still, designated to your team. You have the rights to them if they, after the season decide they want to still play in the XFL. The number 1 overall pick, Rashard Davis. He signed to an NFL practice squad. If he wants to still play in the XFL, the DC Defenders have rights to him. So not only do they have the guys that they originally drafted, if they do come back, that's a great situation to be in, because now you have all these other players. So your pool of players to choose from just grows.
Yeah, you can never have enough competition in minicamp and training camp. So the more players you have, the more opportunities you're going to have to be successful, because it gives you more guys to choose from. It's simple, odds. You have a team that has 200 guys and a team that has 50 guys, and you got to cut down to 30. I think the team with 200 guys to get down to 30 is probably going to be better, because you're actually selecting those 30. You can hand select it, where if a team has 50, I know that's an extreme example, but just saying, the more players you can choose from, the more selective you can be.
The key part here, though, Kenny, is you need those players after their practice squad, either after they're cut or after the season concludes. You need them to commit back to you, or on the flip side, you've lost all of this talent from your team that you're not going to get to start the season.
But I do wonder if these guys that got picked in the supplemental draft were holding out for NFL jobs, right? And they're probably, I mean, we mentioned 4, 5, 6 guys today that were easily productive NFL players, and for some reason, they're not getting a shot in the league. So all it is just a shuffling of players, right? Like these guys have NFL quality, but like a guy like Terrence Williams, like he's not going to go play in a practice squad. Like he's not going to do that. Like he signed like a multi-million-dollar extension in 2017. Like that's not what he's going to go do. So I think it's just a shuffling of players. These guys were simply holding out, and they kind of see the window of getting an NFL job basically being closed in front of their eyes. So they're like, well, now I'm ready to commit to the XFL because it's a month later, right, from the initial draft. That's how I see it, but I think you bring up a good point, Riley.
Yeah, but to answer your question, you're saying is it an advantage or disadvantage? Yeah, I see what you're saying, Kenny, as far as having more people to choose from. But eventually you're going to want to know your personnel so you can actually start scheming. So if you have a Dupree or if you have a Rashard Davis, which receiver do you actually have? And if you're not going to find out until middle of January, which is when the training camps start in Houston, I mean, I would rather game plan right now instead of 2 months from now, 3 weeks for the XFL season.
It's a great point.
Yeah, it could honestly go one of two ways. Either you get all these guys that are right now in practice squads, you get them back, and then your team is loaded with NFL caliber guys, or vice on the other side, you lose all these guys to practice squads, and then they say, I'm just going to hold out and work out for the next NFL season. And then you screwed yourself in the original draft with all these wasted picks.
It's going to be interesting to see because a lot of practice squads, what happens when the season's over is they get signed, a handful of guys from each practice squad get signed to what they call reserve contracts. And they're non-guaranteed, but they're guaranteed as long as they keep you. But they're non-guaranteed. You can get cut at any time. But it basically is like a placeholder contract that says, hey, you're going to be with us in mini camps and OTAs.
Yeah. But I think it's a great point, Gless. I mean, I can't imagine like Eli Rogers, Terrence Williams, guys like that would have gone undrafted in the first, the first XFL draft. I can't see that.
Yeah. It was probably communicated from their agent saying, hey, like he's not interested in committing to the XFL right now. Like we're still holding out for an NFL contract. And now it's a month later. We're in week, what's tomorrow? 12. Was it week 12? Now it's week 12, season's basically, it's 3/4 over. I still want to play football. So this is an opportunity for me to play football.
Time is just going so fast, guys, isn't it? Like, I can't believe that mini camps are starting around the corner, then training camps. I mean, the season's going to be here before we know it. And I think before we wrap up, it's worth mentioning that there's going to be another supplemental draft that's going to take place sometime in January. So there you're going to even see more guys that are, wrapping up their practice squad duties that are going to say, I'll play in the XFL. Why not make, some extra money during the offseason? So you're going to probably see some decent names in that pool.
Yeah, I remember about a month ago when we discussed a similar topic around the XFL draft. Pastel, you were a big proponent of that January supplemental draft, and you'd made the comment, well, I think a lot of the players that we're going to see on the field from a star perspective will be taken in January because the NFL season will be in the playoffs and the teams that don't make it, and you get a lot of those guys on the practice squad who won't get contracts coming back. So they'll be like, you know what, I'm going to go play in the XFL. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's where the talent's going to be for at least a fourth of the league. Honestly, like it's guys that want to make an extra 50 to 100K playing for 10 weeks. One, it gives them the exposure, and eventually these guys just need to start playing more in game to get some game film on them instead of just practice. So I think it'd be a smart move for some of those practice squad players to get on an XFL team to display their talent.
It's a great point, Pastel. If you're stuck on a practice squad, I mean, you're just stagnant. There's no way for you to like make any impression on these teams if you're just behind the scenes the whole time running scout team and whatnot. You need to get some game reps in a league like the XFL. I mean, it's pretty high competition. Like, I'm very encouraged. I really hope what you're saying actually happens, Pastel, because that's exciting. Because right now, as we look at it, these rosters, I mean, there's some good football talent on these rosters already. So we'll see how it shapes out in terms of guys, whether they agreed to take XFL contracts or not. So that'll kind of all be sorted out once we get to mini camp and training camp. We'll have a better idea of that. But just based off looking at the rosters now, it's a very encouraging sight for the XFL.
All right, XFL fans, for more XFL content, make sure you visit XFLChalkTalk.com. Subscribe to our email list to stay up to date with your favorite team and everything that is the XFL. Visit XFLChalkTalk.com today.
So big news came out of the XFL last week. Get ready, Houston, because come January, it's going to be an XFL Takeover. Guys, I think we kind of knew that the XFL was going to bring all of their teams into one location for their training camp. We had heard rumblings that it was Houston, but this press conference this past week confirms that. And I want to play some clips here before we get into the conversation. Just XFL Commissioner Oliver Luck and Houston Roughnecks president Brian Michael Cooper on just the excitement level of bringing the XFL training camp to Houston.
Very often we're asked, why is Vince McMahon doing this? Why did he relaunch the XFL? And it's really very simple, for the love of football. It's all about the love of the game and what it means to people, and it means a lot to people here, certainly in Houston and South Texas.
I'm certain this historic training camp will have an incredible economic impact through new employment and business opportunities. But I think most importantly, this camp is also going to have a community aspect to it, and it's going to be a community game changer, particularly as the league reimagines pro football by placing fans, including and more closely young fans, closer to the game with camp practices and activities. And so, we're the Houston Roughnecks. We're proud to be a part of this historic training camp. And on behalf of the other 7 XFL teams and our fellow XFL clubs, we look forward to welcoming old and new football fans here to Houston for camp.
So this is a big deal for Houston. I mean, we're talking like bringing $7 million of revenue into the city. I think the mayor said it a couple of times in joking fashion. We're talking over 60,000 meals. You got to have a lot of hungry football players. I mean, hotel rooms. Just think about the economic impact of having an entire professional football league descend on your city. It's a big deal for Houston to get this. And I think in terms of bringing all 8 teams into one location for a startup football league, guys, it just makes too much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a couple of different perspectives, the main one for me is there is no preseason game, right? Or preseason games. So just having them all in a central location where they can all scrimmage each other. I would imagine that we're probably going to get a lot of scrimmages, and you're probably going to have multiple times a week. You're going to have 1s versus 1s, 2s versus 2s from different teams, and we'll get a really good look at what's going on there. But the other thing is from a cost perspective, if you held out at each of the cities, that's 8 different training camps that they would all have to foot the bill for.
This is so cost effective.
It's cost effective, but from a competition standpoint, I think it's a really good way to know that we're also going to get a really good product, right? Because they're all going to be scrimmaging and playing against each other. So I think it makes too much sense from a competition standpoint as well.
Yeah, and let's not gloss over the fact that I'm sure they got a great deal to do this from Houston, or worked out a good deal, a very beneficial deal, because Oliver Luck was the CEO of the Houston Sports Authority from 2001 to 2005. I pretty much alluded to it in his press conference that he still had contacts within the Houston Sports Authority and in that area. And I'm sure, being a Houston Dynamo guy after that. So Oliver has deep roots in the city of Houston. I'm sure they got a great deal. Yeah. It makes too much sense not to do it. Plus, you're in a state where, the motto is God, family, country, football. If you're going to host it anywhere, if you're going to consolidate your training, might as well be in Texas.
They also have the facilities to handle it too. Right. I mean, if you look at all I think a couple, I think they had a couple teams at a high school, but you have Rice, you got the University of Houston, and you got some other smaller colleges that are in the area. So,
but Gless, those high school football stadiums, let's be real, dude. Those high school football stadiums are probably better than some D1 football stadiums out there.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. But
the facilities at these high schools in Texas are insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was the point I was trying to make. They have high quality infrastructure to manage training camps for 8 teams. What other city has that? They're Los Angeles, maybe, Los Angeles maybe been able to support it, but I don't think New York. I don't think anybody else could have held it, but Houston, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
when you look at the pros and cons list, it's just so lopsided. I mean, the only con I can really think of is that your fan base, other than Houston's, obviously, your fan base is not there to be able to, engage with the team, watch the team, build that community outreach and whatnot. So, I mean, and that's a big deal. I mean, it's nothing to, turn your head to, but there's just too many other pros that you just have to do it.
They and the XFL, if the XFL smart, they'll take a page out of. I'm not saying they're on the same level as the MLB, but take a page out of the MLB. MLB holds all their spring training in Florida or Arizona, and outside of a Florida team and an Arizona team, none of the other fan bases are there. So it's doable, and it's going to be in January, so it has to be in a warm weather area. Like you can't hold it in DC in February or in January.
Yeah, and things get done. Things get done when you centralize operations. It's like the winter meetings for MLB. It's when all the trades happen. It's when all the contracts happen. So when you centralize operations in Houston, you probably have a lot of things that are going to get finalized in January because you're going to have everyone there to make decisions. Yep. And that's the key month to make these decisions as we progress into the actual XFL league in February.
It's a huge point, Pastel. It's a huge point because you don't want to spread your resources as a new league. Not only is it very cost effective, but think about all the travel, like the league office, all their communication staffs, PR, marketing. All of their staffs are going to be able to be in one location, which is a huge deal. And to Glessner's point, the fact that they can kind of have their preseason as well, where it's not a 6-hour plane ride, it's a 45-minute bus trip at most to get to the other team's facility. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and Pastel brings up a good point about centralization, and Riley, you kind of touched on it a little bit too. Just think of what they're going to be able to do with all their digital media staffs that are going to be all in the same spot, and they're all going to be able to do promotions together and events and everything. So even if you can't, like as a fan of a team, and I'm in a different city, I'll still be able to really digest tons of content.
There'll be so much. Yeah, there'll be so much better content having not only the team staffs but the league staffs there as well.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, and the other thing is like there's no established fan bases for any of these teams yet, right? So if you were expecting to bring 10,000 people from DC to come out in February, in January to go watch the Defenders training camp, like it's not going to happen. So centralizing it in order to get that content out, I think is going to be key to creating that buzz for February.
Yeah, Gless. I mean, it's a good point. The only con really is the fan engagement because you don't have the fan base yet to where you can expect that amount of people. But like in Houston, they're going to be working with a lot of organizations, youth organizations. They're going to be bringing kids out to participate in the scrimmages and like interact with the players. So like you could have done that type of stuff in all of these different cities, which now you don't have the opportunity to. But you also have mini camps, which some of the locations haven't been disclosed yet to the public. But if those are somewhat local, you have that opportunity, and then obviously the season to get people involved and build your brand as you go through the year. So I think when you look at the pros and cons, I know not a lot, but some people on social media were like, I wish that their training camp was in the hometown of their team. And I get it because as a fan, you want to be able to go and see their practice. You want to be able to interact with players. But just from, a cost standpoint, logistics standpoint, it just makes too much sense to have it in Houston. So the XFL is just another decision that they're making, setting themselves up for future success.
And you know what? If the fans really want that, they're going to have the ability to voice their opinion now with the new fan advisory network that the XFL launched. And so now that it's kind of like the direct line between the fans to the XFL execs, right? So if you have a suggestion, you want to speak something that is heavy on your heart as far as like you want to see your training camps in your actual hometown where the team is based out of, then you can actually say that on this fan network on a bunch of things that the fan network will be doing.
That's a great point, Pastel. I want to get more into the fan network right after this read from our sponsor, Top Dog Marketing. As always, XFL Chalk Talk is brought to you by Top Dog Marketing. Are you frustrated trying to grow your business online? Top Dog Marketing has the digital marketing expertise, knowledge, and track record to help you grow your business online, bring in more revenue, and help you establish a dominant online presence. Visit topdogmarketing.com. That's topdog, DAWG, marketing.com for your free digital marketing consultation. So some exciting news that came out from the XFL recently. The Football Advisory Network is now live. Kenny, I know that you were kind of involved with something similar in NASCAR, so why don't you kind of give us the lowdown of how the NASCAR section works. Basically, from my understanding, is the FAN, the fan, it's going to be a place for fans to go, give feedback, interact with teams, and fill out surveys, things like that, just to get more involved in the decisions that the XFL has made. Is that how NASCAR works?
Yeah, so about 2 or 3 years ago, NASCAR started what's called the Fan Council, and I signed up for it. And obviously, kind of funny, I'm wearing my NASCAR Jimmy Johnson hat today, so it's very appropriate.
Sorry about that, by the way.
I know he's retiring. I'm sad. But so what it is they started sending out, like you talked about, surveys, questions, and not just like multiple choice or like yes or no or anything like that. Like they wanted fans to type in actual opinions and thoughts on certain issues. One of them being like how the merchandise is sold at tracks. And you know what? They actually adjusted it. It went from having one centralized location to they went back to having individual trailers for drivers and teams because that was a very popular opinion for fans. They talk about on-track activity, like how they like the racing. If you went to the race that weekend, like when Brandon and I went to Atlanta earlier this year, I was able to fill out a survey and say, hey, this is what I enjoyed about our being at the race. This is what I didn't enjoy. This is what I like to see. So it's very in-depth after every week, but then they also do a quarterly and an annual one that takes, 10 to 20 minutes to fill out, and it's super in-depth. And they've actually done a lot of marketing and a lot of, maybe not necessarily competitive rule changes about like aerodynamics and stuff, but rules and championship points and stuff like that. They've actually adjusted a lot of these competition rules based on what fans want to see. So NASCAR's done a very good job with that, and I hopefully the XFL kind of follows that same model, which it sounds like they will.
Yeah, it's just another way that they put fans above all. That motto that they use constantly when talking about fan engagement, getting fan feedback. So this is, it's pretty bare bones right now, guys, since they just launched it. But you can kind of see how the interface works here. And this is for any fan. You can go to XFL.com, and you can sign up to be in the Football Advisory Network. And it's just like a great community where you can give feedback. You can interact with posts. They're putting up, some fan-specific content, as you can see here, giving team updates. So I feel like, this is just the foundation. They're going to build on this as they go throughout the year. So it's just another way to get the fans involved in the process and what they're doing. And I think, especially as a startup league, this is a huge move for the XFL in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I work in marketing, and one of the hardest things to do is get constant stream feedback from your fans, your customers, your potential customers. And that's essentially what this is, right? It's a way to keep your finger on the pulse and know what the fans think of your product, both on the field and off the field, and then for constantly evolving the game to where the product is really, really good on the field, and it's exactly what we all want to see. So I think it's a fantastic idea, and I applaud the XFL for instituting this really early, right, and starting to get this going. So obviously we're giving our feedback, but also it's a way for us as an XFL media outlet to see what the fans are talking about as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. It's absolutely
it's huge. It's huge for us, but it's also huge for the league in order to create an awesome product. And like I said, Kenny works in marketing as well. It's in order to keep a constant pulse and changing the product, you have to have this information, and this information it will now be streaming in when the league's really kind of going full board.
So it's also organizational leadership 101 for the most part. You're creating buy-in with the fans. I feel like now I have a stake in what's actually the product that's being put on the field. And I'm going to be a lot more invested in that product now that I know I have a voice with this.
That's a great point.
Network. So it's a great marketing move, but I also think it's a great organizational move as far as just creating buy-in with the fans.
So the XFL is giving you that avenue. Use it. Use your voice. FootballAdvisoryNetwork.com. Sign up. Anybody can do it, and you can give your feedback. And the league is saying that they're going to take, from the surveys, the questionnaires, the feedback that they get from the FAN. They're going to take that information and implement things from it. So your voice matters in this process.
If you have concerns about if they really are going to listen to it, I hate to keep going back to like auto racing stuff, but so NASCAR and an organization called IndyCar are big rivals. And one of the questions that's consistently come up on the NASCAR Fan Council is, should they cross promote? Because they race at a lot of the same tracks, just at different times. But should they cross promote together? Like have doubleheader weekends, IndyCar races a Saturday, NASCAR races Sunday, vice versa. And there's been a grassroots movement between both fan bases to do that, because high tides raise all ships in motorsports. And now you're actually hearing rumblings of that actually happening. Like, this is a legit reality. This is something that started on the NASCAR Fan Council and is now set to become a reality after 2021. So that they do listen. This is a big deal.
Yeah. So
yeah,
go ahead, Pastor.
My only worry though, Kenny, is sometimes I think fans want things that they really don't want. So like, we want it to get the play right on the field, right, with like pass interference. Well, now that pass interference call for like the NFL has just gotten ridiculous at this point. What's a catch? What's not a catch? So this instant replay. So we want an instant replay as fans, and now it's gotten to the point where I don't like instant replay, I think, at this point, because it's just slowing the game down so much, and it's just so boring. So I guess really my question to you, Kenny, from the auto racing standpoint, has there been rules implemented that the fans wanted that actually was a detriment to the organization NASCAR?
I would say no as of right now. And granted, it's only about 3 years old, so it's a small sample size. But my guess is NASCAR's probably not taking like, if the opinion is like supported by like 58% of the fan base, they're probably not implementing that. It's probably something like, hey, 95% of the fan base wants this to happen. And NASCAR's a little different than football too. So you can't really compare apples to apples on that. It's really apples to oranges because there's so many dynamic things. But from what I've seen, it's generally the heavier opinionated stuff that gets pushed through.
Yeah, this is just going to be a piece of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a large piece, and I think it will be, but there's other things that they have to take into account when making decisions around football operations, things like that. So, but visit FootballAdvisoryNetwork.com, sign up, and use your voice throughout the season, because it's only going to build from here. It's super exciting that they've launched this, and we'll keep tabs on it at XFL Chalk Talk. You can probably interact with us on the Football Advisory Network. So look out for more from Fan moving forward as we head towards the regular season. What's up, football fans? Visit XFLChalkTalk.com to get the latest analysis, discussions, interviews, and news from around the league. You can also sign up for our email list so you can receive notifications on when content is posted focused on your favorite XFL team.